All right, what's up, Jawas? This is Steven and Josh from Fantology, and today we have a special guest. We have Andy. Andy is a big Star Wars and video game YouTuber, goes by the handle of CubsFan Han on YouTube, so check him out. Andy, what's up? Tell everyone about what you do.
Yeah, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on the show. It's really fun to finally be here on an episode and see your podcast. Josh and I are big, really good friends in real life, and we've always talked about doing something like this and even thought about doing it on our own thing, and then it didn't really work out. And so I'm really happy that you guys have this Fantology podcast where you can talk about all this nerdy stuff. I think it's great. So I do Star Wars on YouTube and Twitch, mostly Star Wars games. Is my main poll on YouTube, but I really like talking about the Star Wars universe in general. The game that I play is called Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and it's a game that I would say most people playing it are very hardcore Star Wars fans, really hardcore Star Wars fans. And so it kind of forces you to really deep dive into the Star Wars universe to do what I do. And I'm pretty okay with that because I've always been a super big Star Wars fan, and I don't think there's any better time to be a Star Wars fan than right now with everything that we've had in the last couple of years and what we've got coming up in the future. So anyway, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about The Mandalorian today.
Yeah, we're stoked. This is going to be a season 2 review. I mean, but we could talk about whatever Star Wars. Josh and I are both, Star Wars fans for sure,
Yeah.
but certainly not experts. So the dynamic this episode is going to be a little bit of us kind of like talking about our impressions of The Mandalorian and maybe you correcting us and telling us what we should actually be looking for.
Oh, well, you know what? Here's the thing. Everybody's going to view these things in their own way, and there's not really a wrong or right way to view things. I mean, maybe I can give some additional context if you guys have, I don't know how much you guys are familiar with like Clone Wars and Rebels, which give a lot of context to stuff that's going on in season 2 of The Mandalorian. But you guys feel however you want to feel about this. Every Star Wars fan should enjoy it on their level, wherever that is.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get into that with you because I personally haven't seen either Clone Wars or Rebels. So yeah,
Shame
so I'm
on you.
excited. So I'm excited to ask you about how things landed, and we're gonna go with full spoilers, I think, from here on out. So if you haven't seen, if you haven't seen season 2 of Mandalorian, then watch it. I think it's all an easy recommend for us, from us. So go watch it, check it out. But from here on out, if you haven't watched it, tune out, and we're going to talk about spoilers.
And fortunately, I mean, something I'll comment on. Josh hasn't seen Clone Wars or Rebels, which I'm going to make sure he does for all of you guys because that's really kind of bothering me that he hasn't seen it. But no, but if you haven't seen that, you can still watch The Mandalorian and you can still enjoy it. There are some nods to those shows that we can talk about that I think make it better, but you're not going to be confused if you haven't seen those.
Yeah, I'm going to have to actually, unfortunately, tell you that I haven't seen either as well. Yeah, I know.
You guys.
Something about, for some reason, like being an adult and like an animated show as an adult just seems, for some reason, it's really hard for me to think I'm going to enjoy this, but I probably will. In fact,
I will tell you guys that the end of Rebels in particular had one of the most emotional Star Wars moments of all time. Wow. And Clone Wars in particular has some of the best lightsaber fights of all time. Now, there is some filler episodes and some episodes that feel like they're maybe geared more towards kids, but I will tell you right now, it's not a kid's show. It is now. Resistance is probably a kid's show. I had a hard time with Resistance. I still watched it, and there's some good stuff in there, but that one felt like I was watching a kid's show. Rebels and Clone Wars, no. I think you guys should watch it.
That's good. That's good to know because I've always I never really paid attention when they're coming out, and so it's just there hasn't been a real good excuse to go watch it. But now that it's actually tying stuff into content I'm really interested in, I think it's a good time to go back and watch it.
Please watch it. I think
especially
it's so
with all of these other shows that have been announced, it seems like it maybe is a little more necessary for us to do that. So yeah, we'll do it.
It's always been good Star Wars content, but now that they're connecting it to the live action stuff, I think that people will find themselves wanting to watch it more. That's a good point.
So I'm going to tick off a pretty large portion of the fan base right here, but I was secretly kind of relieved when Disney kind of said that everything besides the original trilogy was no longer canon. like I felt how terrible that must have been for like mega fans. But for myself, who hadn't watched anything besides the core 6 movies, you know, I was kind of like, okay, I can feel like I can jump back in Star Wars and understand everything that's going on. So I'm happy that it seems like what they're doing, and this is me, not a mega fan talking, but they're picking the best parts of everything else and incorporating it and recanonizing it.
So I can get behind some of what you're saying, and other parts. I would say the way I look at it is there's a huge wealth of background that they can draw upon for the universe. They did not draw upon any of it for the sequel trilogy. They threw everything that was there in the expanded universe in the garbage, and I think that's a problem. I don't think they should have done that, even though there's things that I liked about the sequel trilogy. I liked the movies individually, even though they did a horrible job, in my opinion, of making them connect and make sense as a trilogy together. But the way I look at it, if we're going back, especially because they're starting to delve into the High Republic era, which is before the prequels, and a potentially Old Republic at some point, I'm hoping, is maybe like the Marvel comics are to the MCU, where you've got this story that you're taking parts from, but you're changing it just a little bit. And so I wish they did more of that. But you know, right now they seem to be doing that with like Grand Admiral Thrawn, for example, a character that you guys might not be familiar with if you haven't read or haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels. Well, he's not in Clone Wars, he's just in Rebels. Or if you haven't read the books, there's a whole trilogy, Heir to the Empire, with Thrawn that takes place kind of in the Empire era and then beyond. And Thrawn is one of, in my opinion, the greatest, most strategic, badass characters in all of Star Wars. And they've brought him back in Rebels, and now Ahsoka name dropped him in The Mandalorian season 2, obviously. And so we're probably going to see him in the Ahsoka show. And so, yeah, I could get behind it, but I think if you were to read a lot of those expanded universe books, you'd probably feel slighted that they threw a lot of them away.
Yeah, and which I could only imagine if they did that for, you know, a series that I'm like really invested in. Then I would feel terrible. So it was kind of like a selfish relief.
Yeah,
but
they seem to be repenting a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. They're kind of avoiding the sequels, if you've noticed. They announced 10 shows, and now there's 11 with the Book of Boba Fett, which was revealed at the end of the season finale of season 2. And none of those shows are getting into from Force Awakens on. None of them. Wow. So they seem to be keen on avoiding that era.
I didn't even realize that. Okay. Yeah. This is good for me. This is educational. Okay. So Mandalorian. We are going to talk about Mandalorian.
Oh, good.
So,
let's go.
yeah. So season 2. So season 2 concluded last Friday. This episode will probably come out a little bit before Christmas. So about a week ago. And I guess let's just kind of get started. Like, how did we like season 2? I personally liked it quite a bit, and I think I liked it more than season 1. And Andy, I'm kind of interested to hear from you and from the fandom, because I know you get a lot of feedback from people. Like, what are people thinking?
Yeah, it's a good point. I definitely have a really good pulse on the fandom. I spend all day on Twitter interacting with hardcore Star Wars fans, and I don't think I've seen anybody that liked this season less than season 1. It seems to be universally accepted that this season was the best season of The Mandalorian, and that's not a slight on season 1 at all, because we all loved that as well. And also, I think it seems to be pretty commonly accepted that the season finale in particular was some of the best Star Wars maybe since the original trilogy. I'm going to call it the best Star Wars that I've seen that Disney has produced. That's why I'm going to say that pretty concretely. And I'm a Disney fan of Star Wars. I know a lot of Star Wars fans don't like Disney. They think Disney's the devil. I completely disagree. I do think they botched the sequel trilogy, but they've done a lot of good things as well. I think that season 7 of Clone Wars was phenomenal, which shame on you guys for not watching it. I think Rebels was great. I think Rogue One was phenomenal. Rogue One gave us one of the best, most fan service Vader scenes that we've ever seen. I think Solo was great, even though it kind of came on the heels of The Last Jedi, and as a result, also in the middle of 2 big Marvel movies, and so I think it got less attention than it deserved. And so I think Disney has done all good things except for the sequel trilogy, which is a big thing that they screwed up, in my opinion. Even though I like some of those individual movies. And so I'm going to say, with all of that considered, this episode was the best thing that Disney did with Star Wars ever. It was amazing.
So when you say it's the best Star Wars, the season 2, episode 8, when you say it's the best Star Wars, what do you mean exactly? Like the best action sequence? Because there was a lot of that, or just the overall feel of the episode? What are we talking about here?
Yes. All of it.
Yes to all
Everything
of it.
about it. The action was great. I loved. Here's something that I really liked about it. And this is something that I think directors struggle with Star Wars, is you want to appeal to the nostalgia, right? And this episode had that nostalgia to it, but it didn't. Yeah. It didn't push on it in a cringy way, if that makes sense. I think, like, for example, these Star Wars trailers that you get, you know, they're always giving you these big swells of Leia's theme or Luke's theme. You know, the music gets really, I guess they want to trigger this emotional response with the music or with these very obvious nostalgic moments. This episode was really subtle on the nostalgia. In fact, there was only one a bleep of maybe 30 seconds that played a familiar theme. Everything else was completely new from a music standpoint. And bringing in a character like Luke in the final episode is a very vulnerable thing to do that could have been handled very poorly. And here's something that I think is really interesting about that moment in particular. Every single person I talked to leading up to this episode, everybody did not want Luke to be in it. Everybody. Every single person I talked to, hardcore Star Wars fans, my friends and family, nobody wanted Luke to show up, but nobody is upset with Luke showing up now. What does that tell you? They took something that nobody wanted because they didn't want to make, I think a lot of people don't want the Mandalorian to just be too connected to everything. But the way that they did it, everybody forgave it and everyone was down. So done. So well done.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you have told me that Luke was going to be in the Mandalorian, like pre-season 1 or even after season 1, between season 2, I would have just said, oh, well, that's gonna wreck it, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that they did it so well with just like him being in it for what, 30 seconds or less, or maybe a minute, it was not very long. And so
it's a minute and 36 seconds.
A minute and 36 seconds.
No,
okay.
I'm just playing.
Okay. So, but I really hope that they don't go overboard in like season 3 and on, that they don't just keep Luke in it as like a recurring character, because I think that could kind of botch it for me, kind of do what you're saying.
Well, I agree. I think that's a valid concern, but trust in Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau for me, my friend, because so far they've handled stuff like this perfectly. And so I personally trust that they aren't going to handle that in a poor way. I don't know exactly what they're going to do next. I think that we're going to see Luke again. How much, I think, remains to be seen. But so far, they've just handled stuff like this very tastefully. It's not like I'll draw a parallel. If you played Battlefront 2, which I'm guessing you guys didn't, but there's a campaign for Battlefront 2, and it was basically like, let's throw every well-known character in here that we can. And it was a canon story, okay? And it was just like every time somebody showed up, it's like, why are they here? Like, why? And this is the thing when it comes to storytelling that I think is important, is the why needs to make sense. Why did Luke show up in this episode? Right. Did they just throw him in there? No. Luke was the only person, in my opinion. When Grogu goes to Tython and he's reaching out through the Force 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and he's reaching out to a Jedi, who in the galaxy is going to show up? People say Ezra, people say Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order. None of those, they don't make sense. They're not building a literal Jedi Order. Luke is literally in this moment of time building a Jedi Order. Nobody else made sense. And so they really earned it in the story, which is where I'm okay with fan service / nostalgia when it is earned. In the Battlefront 2 campaign is a great contrast. None of it was earned. It was just like, let's just throw every character. They actually threw Luke in, Leia in, Lando in, Han in like consecutive missions. None of them made sense. This made sense in the story, and so I buy it 100%.
Andy, I will trust you on all of those name drops.
Okay.
Completely agree, because this season, it spent a whole season, if not like most of the first season too, building up to this moment and had an incredible payoff to it. So
Yeah.
that's why I just hope that doesn't cheapen it in future seasons. But I agree. Like, I don't think that Favreau's putting out content that like I don't thoroughly enjoy. So I have
And by the
a lot
way,
of hope for it.
Dave Filoni, one of the names that you guys are becoming accustomed to, he was heavily involved in both Clone Wars and Rebels. I'm going to continue pressing this for you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
Because he directed a few episodes, right? He directed like 2 in this season, 1 in season 1 or something.
Yeah. Dave Filoni directed the Ahsoka episode.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And they're not going to put the CGI Luke in too much more, right? Like, I mean, the CGI was decent in my opinion, but they're not going to do too much with that, are they?
It depends on how much I think we're going to see him. I think if he's used like as kind of like I would say this episode would qualify as a cameo, right? He's not a main character in The Mandalorian yet. If they lean towards making him a main character, please go away from the CGI. I do not want it on a very regular basis. But if he comes back in like, mid-season, season 3, and it's just a cameo again, I'm fine with it, if they want to keep it consistent. But obviously a lot of fans name drop Sebastian Stan as somebody who played Winter Soldier. Looks very much like Mark Hamill did in his prime. And so Mark Hamill's in his prime right now. I mean, when he was younger, let's be honest, he's such an awesome dude. So anyway, if he's going to be a more regular character, I'd like an actor to fill it, and kind of like they did for Solo.
Hey, Andy, at what point in that episode did you know it was Luke? Like the green lightsaber, the gloved hand? Was it all the way up until the hood was? At what point were you sure it was Luke?
This is a good question. And I think if you watch my replay, I don't say in my reaction video, it's Luke, until I see his lightsaber hilt. But in my mind, I think I pretty much knew when I saw the X-Wing. Nobody else is gonna fly an X-Wing. Like it's not one of the Rangers of the Republic. It's not. There's no way. And especially when Cara Dune says, "Oh great, a lone X-Wing, we're saved." It had to be Luke. But in my heart, I didn't want to accept that until I knew it, if that makes sense. And so I think I still doubted it. And so it wasn't until I saw the lightsaber hilt that I knew for sure. But it just, nothing else would have made. If they showed X-Wing flying in and then it ends up being somebody else, it just would have felt weird.
Josh, you?
Well, so I didn't know for sure until the theme music started playing, until like the Skywalker reprise started.
Okay. I hate to dog on your parade there, but they actually didn't play Luke Skywalker's theme. They played the Force theme.
Okay.
I'm a big Star Wars music nerd, and I've actually really analyzed the music of this episode. So yeah, this is something I really like about the episode is as Luke is getting his Vader hallway moment, they aren't playing Luke's theme. Ludwig Göransson, who did the music for The Mandalorian, I think is a genius. He actually won an Oscar for his work on Black Panther, if you paid attention. And he doesn't rely on the musical nostalgia of Luke. And when he takes his hood off, he doesn't play Luke's theme, which Luke's theme is the main Star Wars theme that you all know and love. Da 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 da. That's Luke's theme. He plays the Force theme, do 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 do, which I think is really interesting. So, but it's fine if you associate that theme.
That's with what I associate with Luke.
Yeah, shame on you, Josh.
But
I'm sorry, I'm a huge mega nerd.
I mean, yeah. So like, I figured with the lightsaber and everything, but it was so out of nowhere to me that I was like, are they? And I wasn't sure on the timeline. Like I've never been really sure on when Mando is taking place. So I didn't know if it would make sense for it to be Luke or not. So like, I just didn't, it wasn't really in my realm of thinking it could happen.
So let me help you right now with the timeline. And for any of our listeners who aren't sure. So you've got episodes 1, 2, and 3, and then you've got Rogue One, and then you've got 4, 5, and 6, right? And episode 6 is obviously when they destroy the second Death Star and Luke saves his father. He sees his face, etc. 5 years after that is where the Mandalorian picks up, which is also 25 years before Rogue One, before Force Awakens.
Okay,
that's what I wasn't sure about. I wasn't sure about the time from, and I've kind of since gone back and made sure I knew what the timeline was. But there were a few confusing things. The Boba Fett thing, I think, was the most confusing for me with the timeline, because I was like, wait, this dude is dead because he fell in the pit in Tatooine, right?
Pit,
yeah. I thought he was dead, and it's like, wait a second, is Mandalorian actually not where I thought it was? And then I was like, oh wait, no, he's still alive because now he's taken over Tatooine, and this is no, but now I understand. So he survived that somehow.
No one's ever really gone.
Yeah, there's
To
definitely
quote
no
the
body.
sequel trilogy. Yeah, no, it's actually it was canon already that Boba Fett survived that. That was in the comics. And so Boba Fett, you could see he's got a very scarred face. And that's also part of how he lost his armor, I believe. Probably a story that will be told in a little more detail in the Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
But yeah,
And I guess
post Sarlacc pit.
And the Beskar can survive anything, so maybe that's how he survived. Is that a theory?
Yeah, I think that and I actually didn't read the comic. In that secondhand knowledge, I was told that by somebody else. I'll confess. So I don't know if they got into that, if that had anything to do with how he survived. But he's a total badass, so I'm sure he found a way.
Yeah, that was always like the most disappointing thing when I went back and rewatched the original trilogy on my most recent, because I hadn't watched it for like 10 years or something.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
So I was like, I just remember, because Boba Fett becomes such like an icon, pop culture icon, that when I went back and rewatched it, I'm like, wait, he like doesn't do a whole lot. Like, he's in the story and is kind of a cool character, but he doesn't do a whole lot, and then just gets pushed in and disappears.
Something I think is funny about Star Wars fans is we love to obsess over characters that are meaningless. And so Boba Fett, I hate to say it, he was almost meaningless in the sequel or in the original trilogy. He did very little. Obviously he, delivered Han Solo in Carbonite, and he had to deal with that. And he was, obviously contracted for several things. But you don't really see him much. You don't hear him much. And in fact, he just tells Darth Vader that he loves him because he says, "As you wish," right? That's basically all that Boba Fett does. Another character like that is Admiral Akbar. While in the universe, he's obviously a significant character in the universe. He's basically only known by the fandom because he says the famous line, "It's a trap," right?
Yeah, he's been memed. He's been memed to death for sure.
Yeah, I tell people like because people got offended in the sequel trilogy, they killed Admiral Akbar in favor of leaving Holdo there or whatever. And I was like, you guys only care because of the meme, like. Anyway. It's okay if you like Admiral Akbar. I'm not sliding you for that.
Okay, so while we're on theories, is there a theory about Snoke's connection here with the Mandalorian and like the thing, the whatever experimentation they're doing with these like half-formed things, and then the Force, whatever that they're trying to take from Grogu? Like, is this like a midichlorian thing going on, or what do we have here?
So you will notice in the episode where they go on that base, the holo projector does reference an M count. And so you can only assume that M count is midichlorians, which is actually kind of cool because Star Wars kind of went away from this whole midichlorian thing after episode 1. I think people thought it was cringy. And so hearing it referenced again kind of brings a smile to my face, because I feel like if that's part of the canon, let's let it stay there. That's just me. Now, as far from a fan standpoint, I honestly hope that they don't do anything with Snoke here. I honestly hope they don't do anything with Palpatine, because those storylines were so heavily butchered in Rise of Skywalker, in my opinion, that I just am not interested in them anymore. That's just the fan part of me. It's very plausible in universe, though, that this does connect. If you do see the I guess figure they have in the tube on that episode, if you freeze the frame and zoom in on it, it could feasibly look like Snoke. And so I think that it's very possible that we're seeing the beginnings of how Palpatine returns, which Snoke's connection seems to be only in connection to Palpatine's return, not really his own thing, which I absolutely hate that plot line. I think Snoke should have been his own thing, but that's just my own opinions speaking. So I hope it doesn't connect, but I think it's very plausible that it does.
I honestly kind of think that maybe we could redeem some of the gaping plot holes in the second trilogy if we had some explanation for those things. I'm hoping it does.
That's fair. That's fair. If it redeems those, that's something that a lot of people say about Clone Wars and Rebels. Is it made, especially Clone Wars, it made the prequel trilogy more exciting. It made it make sense more. Or you could say the same thing for Rogue One, which filled one of the biggest plot holes in Star Wars, which is, why the heck is there a thing you can shoot a a torpedo into and it blows the whole thing up. Why is that there? But Clone Wars is like, actually, we got a really powerful answer to that because it was put there by the designer of the Death Star who disagreed with the whole project. And so yeah, maybe we could fill some of those plot holes, but I don't know. I'm kind of just like, after Rise of Skywalker, I was like, this whole Snoke thing's stupid. I don't even care anymore.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And so I had no idea that any of this existed. So about any of the like possible connections. I mean, it's always been, I've wondered what they're doing with, like, if they're trying to make more like Force users or what they're doing with the blood. So that was definitely a question I had, but as just a casual viewer and not someone that's like super connected to the fandom, it just like completely passed me by. So I don't think it's something where they're going to be turning off viewers because of these things, which is always a tricky line to walk on how much we're going to connect it to other things and how many Easter eggs we're going to put in there and making the narrative still make sense. So it sounds like they're doing a good job of that, of just having casual viewers be able to view it and have a good time with it, enjoy it, and then having stuff for fans to obsess over.
For sure. Again, it feels like, based on all the shows that Disney announced, it feels like they're inclined to avoid that sequel trilogy because it sparked a lot of controversy in the fandom. And so this could be my bias speaking, but I also feel like if you look at Moff Gideon, what is motivating Moff Gideon right now? I don't see Moff Gideon as working for anybody right now. I don't see him as somebody who's obsessed with bringing Palpatine back. The Imperial remnant is very scattered. A lot of Imperial officers are working to see their own needs met. And I personally think that Moff Gideon has his own reason for looking for Force users. And I think he's got some history with Grogu. I think it's actually an interesting theory I read once that maybe he even rescued Grogu from the Jedi Temple, that it goes that far back for him. And maybe he is seeking to himself become a Force user. And so those are plot lines I would rather see them explore because I think they bring depth to Moff Gideon more, who's still very much in play. And I think his history with Mandalore needs to come to fruition a lot more. I mean, his reaction to getting disarmed, which if you guys watch Rebels and Clone Wars, you'll learn more about the history of the Darksaber. And I loved the moment in this episode, the finale, of course, where he gets disarmed by Mandalorian and realizes, oh, you're not going to kill me. And you see him break into this twisted smile of, I'm excited to see what comes next because Bo-Katan's not gonna like this because the saber has to be passed through a trial by combat, etc. And so I would rather see them explore those plot lines more and how all of those connect to what Gideon is doing, rather than I think it would kind of minimize Gideon if he's just some pawn who's working to bring Palpatine back.
So speaking about future plot lines and what you're looking forward to, one thing that I've kind of talked to some people about that they're split on is season 3. So season 3 of The Mandalorian. Where are we going, right? Because now Grogu, that's been the whole thing, right? The Baby Yoda. What's going to happen with Baby Yoda? What's going on there? What is Baby Yoda's future? Now we have a bit of an answer, right? Luke has taken Baby Yoda. We don't know what's going to happen because, like you said, there's 25 years. Right. And obviously Baby Yoda's not in the next trilogy. So something happens in the intervening time. But are we as interested in season 3 with the Baby Yoda thing kind of tied up? Or I guess there's freedom for it to come back into play, right?
Listen, I think if I'm Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau right now, I can go full Russell Crowe and put my hands out and say, are you not entertained? Everyone needs to just trust in these guys right now. I mean, there's a lot of questions in what's coming next, and we're going to be fine, guys. There's a lot of storylines that I think really need to be delved into. And if people are worried, I've seen a lot of people worried like, oh my gosh, they're just going to let Kylo Ren kill Grogu. Look, that temple destruction is 20 years away. They got 20 years of history to fill here. There's so much that can happen in the meantime. And so here's a few things to whet your appetite that I think we can look forward to. Number one, we've got a really big rub between the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, and Bo-Katan right now. And that rub of Bo-Katan has this whole time been working towards becoming the leader of Mandalore. And if you did watch Rebels, Sabine Wren gave Bo-Katan the Darksaber, and she claimed leadership of Mandalore. Something happened between now and then to where now she is not willing to take the Darksaber unless she wins it properly, which is how the story works. You only win the Darksaber in trial by combat. She seems intent on doing that now. So what does she do now with Din Djarin being the rightful leader to Mandalore? She's been saying this whole time, we're one, we need to work together. But that whole assumption she's been making is that she would be the one at the helm. So can she accept that? Can she accept that she's not going to be at the helm, or will she go dark side on us and challenge Din Djarin, try to take it herself? And how will Din handle that? Din's not interested in being the leader of Mandalore, but now he is. He's the rightful leader of Mandalore. Is he okay with that? How is he going to handle that? And then Grogu. We've got Grogu off training with Yoda, or with Luke. We're definitely going to be seeing more of that, in my opinion, because The Mandalorian at its core is a story of Din Djarin just as much as it is a story of Grogu. And in particular, it's a story of their relationship. And so the biggest question I have is, how are they going to come back together? They're going to come back together, guys. I would be shocked if they didn't. It might take a little bit. They might spend a little bit of time away from each other, but eventually they're going to come back. And what will be the catalyst to bringing those two back? I go back to Ahsoka and how afraid she was to train Grogu because she saw Anakin in him and she thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be Anakin 2.0. And so is Grogu going to be a rebellious student? I think that's very likely. How is that going to connect to everything? And so to me, if people don't think that there's intrigue in the coming seasons, you're crazy. There's so much intrigue coming up next, and I can't wait to see what they do with it.
So question.
Yeah.
I don't know Bo-Katan's character at all, really, because I think she was developed well enough in the series to where I understood all of her motivations within the context of the episode she was in.
Yeah.
But is she someone that you think could go dark? Would that tick fans off a lot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So define dark. I mean, I wouldn't, dark might be a strong word for it, but she might cause problems. Bo-Katan is very impulsive. She's very hot-headed. She's a Mandalorian. And again, you need to watch because she's in Clone Wars. She's in Rebels. Her character's been firmly established. And the acting, the way that they portrayed her character in the series, I think was perfect. And they've given her a dilemma where I think I'm just really interested to see what she does because I could see her going either way. And I don't really know what she's going to do.
Andy, do you think we're just going to continue with this plotline only through Mandalorian? Or do you think it's possible that these other shows that have been announced, it becomes almost like a Marvel expanded universe where, there's a plot line that exists through all of them and we get some things here and there where they all connect. I really like that idea. I think that's what really makes Marvel fun for me. And obviously Disney. So I'm hoping that's what I would hope for as a fan.
I think that's what you're going to get. And here's the thing. Jon Favreau has been involved in Marvel. And obviously Disney has seen the contrast in how the Marvel fandom has responded to the tremendous success of the MCU. And I think what we're doing is we're doing a Star Wars cinematic universe now that is kind of framed in a similar way. They're just getting started a bit late on doing it like that. We've got all of these shows set during the period of The Mandalorian. If you paid attention to the show announcements, I'll fill you guys in right now. Obviously, The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett now, a newly announced show in the time frame of The Mandalorian. You've also got the Ahsoka show set in the period of The Mandalorian. And then you've also got Rangers of the New Republic, also set in the period of The Mandalorian. And they've told us that these shows are all going to build towards some climactic event. And so what that event is going to be remains to be seen. I personally think it's probably going to connect to Mandalore. And so I think that this is probably the Bo-Katan story is probably a story that's going to weave itself in and out of all of the shows, and probably culminate in maybe a super show that comes together, kind of like Defenders was for the Netflix shows. I could see them easily doing something like that. Something also to note is I find it very likely that the Ahsoka show will have a lot of Bo-Katan in it because Ahsoka and Bo-Katan have a ton of history together. And so I could see easily Bo-Katan and that story and Mandalore and everything coming in through all of it. But I think right now it's set up to primarily be told through The Mandalorian as kind of the base home show, because the main rub in the story right now is between Din Djarin and Bo-Katan.
I'm getting excited hearing you explain all that. I'm now twice as excited, 3 times more. I'm very excited to see where this is going, to this big climactic event that you talked about.
I'm glad you're excited. I really feel like this is I'm a super fan of Star Wars. Like, I'm the kind of fan where when I watched episode 3 as a 17-year-old kid, I cried in the theater like hard during Order 66. You know, I care deeply about this universe, and I'm always excited about Star Wars. I've always, you know, I don't care what it is, just give it to me, good or bad. I'm going to enjoy Star Wars. But this is the best time, period, to be a Star Wars fan. There's never been a more exciting time, in my opinion. It's super good. So yeah, you should be excited. Take it up a couple more notches. Let's go.
and so would you say that for sure, like Clone Wars, I mean, I know you've urged us to watch it. Is it required watching, do you think, for these to get the most out of these series, or even like?
I definitely feel like, yeah, I mean, if you really want to get into the emotion of all of this, especially getting ready for Ahsoka's show, I think Ahsoka's show will be a lot more meaningful to you if you watch Clone Wars. Her character is so good. So good. And if you don't know, she's Anakin's Padawan. And the relationship they have with each other is so good. And then Rebels gets into this, you know, I'll soft spoiler here, but it gets into this rub of Ahsoka realizing that her master, who she loves, is Darth Vader. And there's even a fight there that takes place, and it's so emotional and so powerful. And now you've got this outstanding plot line that I think they're probably going to get into that will be very meaningful, of Ahsoka doesn't realize that Anakin got redeemed in the last moment. How is she going to find that out? And so I would say it's not required watching from the perspective of they're going to have everything make sense without watching those things. I think they definitely want it to be something anybody can watch. But if you really want to get into the emotion and understand these characters on a deep, complex level, please watch Clone Wars and Rebels.
Okay. So I guess the characters are pretty much the same characters. I mean, I know that they obviously have the same name, but they're not just like, they're really keeping it and building off the foundation that they laid in Clone Wars.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more power there, I think. Like the Ahsoka episode, for you guys, you watch that, you don't know Ahsoka yet, right? And it's probably a cool episode. You know, for me, I was like, almost crying seeing this character visualized in live action and hearing her theme played and seeing her reference Anakin during the episode, because there's so much there. And here's something else to think about. Like you get connected to Star Wars characters through a trilogy of films, right? And you care about them, their arc and where they resolve, etc. For Clone Wars, you've got 7 seasons of character arc. How much time is there where you're getting to know these characters and you're becoming, you know, starting to love them, and you spend so much time with them, and it means so much. And especially Clone Wars season 7 is basically Ahsoka's show. Like it's all about Ahsoka. There's so much there that makes it more meaningful. And so if you want to enhance your experience, you'll still enjoy it. I'm sure you guys still enjoyed the Ahsoka episode, but it's so much more powerful if you've gotten to know these characters through those shows.
Yeah, honestly, watching that episode, I was like, oh, this is cool. I know this is a character that other people care about. So I'm going to think it's cool as well. But yeah, I can tell that if I was to watch, I would be even more connected. And expanded universes are so cool. In my, like, I love the Marvel universe. And one series that we're really into on the book side is Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, where he's got all of these different series that all kind of tie in. And for the casual fan, you can read the books and you're like, oh, this is a fun story. And then for the real nerds like us, we're like, oh my gosh, like this guy is this guy. And they all tie in together from this other series. And there's so much potential for just so much cool stuff when you get into this expanded universe that brings in all these different things. And yeah, I love it. Okay, I'm excited. I'm committed to being a Star Wars nerd now.
I'm gonna follow up with you guys next time you bring me on your show, and I'd love to come on again to talk more Star Wars with you, or Marvel. I love to talk Marvel too. I'm gonna make sure you guys have watched this, and I'll tell you this hot take for you. Ahsoka Tano might be my favorite Star Wars character of any Star Wars character.
Really?
Well, Obi-Wan is very high on the list as well, but Ahsoka Tano, I'm going to say she is very much in contention for that title.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like in this episode I didn't mind her character, but it wasn't like a particularly compelling storyline, for me. Like within the episode, I was more kind of concerned about the village and like, oh, how are they going to liberate this little town? That's kind of more where the emotional stakes lay for me, having not really known anything about her character besides it is
That makes sense.
someone that people care about.
Yeah.
Because she was, it seemed like at the beginning of the episode, she was almost like set up to be kind of a gray character with her just kind of mowing people down.
Oh, she's not a Jedi.
Yeah. So that's
she leaves the Jedi Order, and there's a lot of history there. Oh my gosh, you guys got to see this.
Okay. All right.
There's so much story there. See, the thing is like that makes sense to me hearing that because you don't know about Ahsoka, but for me, it was like the ultimate fan service Ahsoka moment. I was just watching her mow down people and the way she did it, and the little like there's this moment where she right after she cuts the bell and it rolls down and she's just mowed everyone down. There's one guy remaining and he looks at her, he's like, oh crap, and she just kind of tilts her head and smiles at him and lets him run away. It was such an Ahsoka moment. Like there's just so much there. So
okay.
Did you like the live action portrayal? Sounds like yes.
Yeah,
like
Rosario Dawson did an amazing job. I thought the live action, the way that she fought and the way that she talked, the way that she moved, everything about her screamed Ahsoka to me. And so I thought it was a very worthy portrayal. A lot of people wanted it to be Ashley Eckstein, who is the voice actress. And I think she would have been amazing too. But what I like about the pick for Rosario Dawson is she just looks more like Ahsoka and she feels more like Ahsoka, even though Ashley owns that character. I thought the passing of the torch worked well, and they even had a little interaction on Twitter over it. And so it's good to see, even though I'm sure Ashley, I would guarantee you Ashley's heart aches that she wasn't given the opportunity to play that character because she loves Ahsoka so much. I thought the portrayal was perfect, and I've got no complaints.
So we wanted to talk favorite characters from season 2. Sounds like your pick is Ahsoka. Josh, who is your favorite character from season 2?
I'm gonna have to go with what's his name? Bill Burr's character.
Yeah, Mayfield.
Yeah, I loved him.
Okay.
I thought that he added some needed levity to the season because we got some pretty heavy episodes there, with them kind of just mowing down a bunch of stormtroopers and then Grogu getting kidnapped, and it was getting a little bit dark, which is fine. I like dark shows, but I just enjoyed the timing of that episode, him coming in, cracking wise, getting a little bit of emotional depth as well when he was sitting down with his previous commander and seeing how
he provided some levity and some really nice kind of deeper philosophical discussions, like you say, with his previous commander there was some realization there and then some good character growth, and then also his conversation with the Mandalorian when they were in that like armored truck, right? Moving the stuff. What was the stuff? Some kind of chemical, right? That they were moving over. Anyway, that was a good discussion there.
Yeah, with how what is morality, right? And his assumption was as long as you can sleep well at night, then you're a moral person, and I think that gave the Mandalorian enough confidence to like take off his helmet to get his face scanned because he knew that he needed to be able to sleep well, and having to decide between his more I guess you would say fundamentalist like belief system about never showing your face versus doing good, versus doing what he needed to do to get the right thing done.
I feel like Star Wars, and I mean, go ahead and correct me here, Andy, but I feel like Star Wars, at least from my perspective, has always been a good versus evil type of thing. And now with moments like these, we're getting into more of like, what is good? What is evil? Is there kind of like a gray middle ground? And I think it's, I don't know, maybe like an expansion of some of the of some of the deeper meanings of Star Wars.
This is my favorite part of recent Star Wars, is that it is delving into that nuance, which is something that I think OG Star Wars didn't do quite as good of a job of. Is very polarizing, light side, dark side. Now you're seeing kind of this more middle ground, and you're also getting into, like in the most recent episode, you have this conversation between Cara Dune and this Imperial officer while Dr. Pershing is at Blaster Point, and where he's kind of tossing Alderaan in her face, and she's like, well, which Death Star were you on? You know, there's this kind of rub there. And then he references, you know, yeah, you killed millions of people. And you've got this like, oh, you know, wow, that's a pretty substantial loss of human life. And obviously Last Jedi got into that, where you've got that character who's like, oh yeah, it was, you know, they're selling to the bad guys and the good guys, you know. I think it's really interesting that they're starting to get into those things. And also, Josh, I love that you bring up this this conversation that we saw between Bill Burr's character Mayfield and the Imperial officer in the last chapter of the Mandalorian. I think it was the penultimate episode, right? Very, very interesting stuff. They even had another Battlefront 2 call out, by the way, to Operation Cinder, which was obviously something that was very devastating. They were like changing weather patterns on these planets and just absolutely obliterating people. And you see that, you know, that conversation between Mayfield and the Imperial officer, you see the humanity there. And I think his character in the original episode of that he was in The Mandalorian, he's, you know, messing with Mando about his helmet. He likes to kind of push on these sensitive areas, right? He's even saying, oh, he's a Gungan under there is what I said, I think. And in this episode, even he's kind of poking at that again. But then after that conversation, when he has that very human moment where he, you know, kind of confronts his enemy and then ultimately kills him, and they're going out, he tells the man, he gives the Mando his helmet back, and he says to him, I didn't see anything. What respect that he's showing there? You know, this character that's been very, very, I guess, disrespectful in a lot of ways to that, kind of being sarcastic with his religious commitment to the helmet. Now saying that, I think it's a really interesting contrast.
It's almost like he respects the Mandalorian more for his commitment to it, when he sees that he knows, like when he puts it in context of like, well, I'm still going to care about people more than I care about like this one tenet of my belief system. Yeah. But it's still important to him. You know what I mean? So it's almost like it makes him respect the Mandalorian more, because he sees that he's still going to like have some perspective on life for it, which I think is some growth for the Mandalorian too, because I don't think he would have done that in the first episode of the first season, you know. And
didn't that help bring so much weight to the moment in chapter 16 when Din takes his helmet off for Grogu?
Yeah, that was another super emotional moment. That was great stuff right there.
And can I do a little music nerding with you guys?
Oh yeah.
I've analyzed the music for this episode so much, because I think Ludwig Göransson just deserves all the Emmys for it. But that moment was so powerful in so many ways, and I think something that enhanced it, if you listen to that music, it feels very, very distinctly 80s sci-fi, which I think is really interesting, because it's not a direct callback to old Star Wars music, but it's a callback to that era of time that those movies came out. And I think it's interesting that that's the style that he goes with when Din Djarin is taking his helmet off for that super emotional moment between father and son, because it also felt like it was kind of a love letter to when Darth Vader takes his helmet off and wants to look upon Luke with his own eyes. And let's enhance it even further. Luke is standing right there when this is happening, observing it.
I didn't even think of that. You may. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
This is why we have you on, Andy.
This is why we have Andy.
This is good stuff, man.
I care a lot.
Can I tell you guys my favorite character?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon was my favorite character. I just thought the performance was outstanding.
It's Giancarlo Esposito. Is that how you say his name? I mean,
something like that.
It's Gus from Breaking Bad, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was so convinced that this dude was totally evil, but also brilliant. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately he did get outsmarted, but or at least outplayed. But he didn't think Luke would be there. But
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is a wild card. And again, this is another example. I think we're seeing a lot of this Deus Ex Machina things done really well in media right now. Is Luke did kind of provide that, right? Like they were in an unwinnable situation, and kind of a godlike figure comes down and destroys.
Well, you always knew they were going to win somehow.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is I feel like the stakes are high enough with Mandalorian, because they really they don't shy away from bad things happening to these characters. Yeah. Where like, I don't know, I could have seen Moff getting away with baby or with Grogu.
Yeah.
And like,
well, he does
thing
for a
with
few
the-
episodes, and then they destroy his ship. I mean,
Yeah.
that was devastating to me. It's like, man,
Yeah.
this ship is taking me through everything, and now it's gone. And that sucked.
And we don't have a ship for Mando right now going into season 3. He's shipless.
Yeah.
Well, unless he just commandeers that first order ship or that not first order,
The light cruiser.
The light, he's
Little
gonna take
light
the whole
cruiser.
light cruiser.
just like,
Hey, I'm okay with that. Yeah, he
well,
could rock it.
they do
Well,
have
actually,
that droid.
no, he won't, because he promised it to Bo-Katan if she helps him.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
just remember that.
It was cool to see him cruise around in Slave One. That's a very cool ship. I love that
But
one.
Boba went away. He's off on Tatooine now, rocking Jabba's palace. So who knows?
All right, we only have a few minutes left to close out. I just want to hear everyone's favorite episode or moment, or what was like the one thing from the season that you're going to remember the most. I mean, I know there's not just one thing, but what was maybe something that we haven't talked about yet to try to cover more of the show, more of the season.
Ooh. Well, my favorite, if you're going to ask my favorite moment that I'm going to remember the most, is something we've talked about already. It's when Din takes his helmet off. I felt like that with Grogu there, that moment was just so powerful on so many levels. They earned the power of it through a setup of 2 seasons, and the way that Pedro Pascal acted in that moment was so powerful. And that's the moment that I'm thinking of over and over and over again and just visualizing. But if I were to pick another moment that I really liked out of the episodes, is probably the whole how everything transpired on Tython with Grogu in particular, meditating on the Seer Stone. And Tython, if you guys don't know, has so much history in the Star Wars universe. It's actually the birthplace of Force users. It's where they first commandeered the Force and learned how to wield it. And there's just so much depth in history. Now, a lot of that history isn't canon. So, but the planet in expanded universe,
and so is that temple. That temple is like the place, the original.
It's the
place?
original. It's the OG temple. And so for him to be meditated on top of that scene or on top of that temple, while all that was going on, was just a really, really cool moment to me that I just wanted to absorb and suck in, and then ended in tragedy, which was very depressing.
Hey, do you know where that was filmed? It looked like it was southern Utah or desert of Arizona, somewhere kind of where we are.
So if I understand, I don't know if season 2 was the same way, but I think they filmed everything, literally everything, in a studio.
Wow.
Even those landscape moments.
It felt like, looking at it, it looks like it's outside, but I've been told that it's all in a studio. I don't know if season 2 might have been different, but I know season 1 was 100% studio.
So this is something that our guy Brandon Sanderson has talked about a little bit, because he wants to make his big series, Stormlight Archive, into a TV show one day. It would fit really well as a nice 8 episode season type of thing. But this series it takes place in this totally alien landscape, and it would have to be totally CGI. But he referenced The Mandalorian as something that's really kind of a game changer right now with the way that they're doing CGI. It's more affordable, and they're able to make it look so real. I mean, obviously I thought it took place in a real set somewhere outdoors. So I'm excited that we're having shows that are doing this and breaking ground for some of our favorite fantasy series to potentially get onto screen one day.
Yeah, they did a lot. And I mean, you really see it kind of come to fruition, I think, in the last episode, where you see, I mean, how many different shots of that light cruiser. You see so much of it. I mean, you're used to seeing a ship like, I'll use an example of chapter 6 of The Mandalorian, which is where they're rescuing that Twilight character, and they're going through that ship, and it's kind of like it's kind of like Star Wars Among Us on the ship, and you see like the same hallway 5 times. It's that's all they got. Contrast that with this light cruiser moment, where you're seeing maybe 7 or 8 different rooms in that light cruiser, and so they're really building upon that, and I think they're doing a lot better with it.
Nice. Okay, Josh, what's yours? We got to go quick because I know Andy's late for his stream.
Yeah, this is a smaller moment, but when Mando holds out, when they're in the ship cruising, and he holds out the little bead, and Grogu pulls it toward him, and you get that little outburst of emotion from Mando, and then Grogu kind of like freaks out a little bit, or not freaks out, but and then Mando like calms him down and it's like, no, it's okay, I'm not upset, you did really well. Just like as a father of kind of a kid that does get up to a lot of hijinks and then really feels things if like I ever lose my patience with him or anything.
Also a kid that loves Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, also a kid that loves Mandalorian.
Good dad.
But
Good dad.
But he I just really felt like a human connection, which I'm always looking for with Mando, because it is hard with the mask on, with the you know, you can't see the emotion in the face. It just was another really great connection moment where I was like, I relate on another level to like what this character is going through.
So I want to talk about this because I think a lot of people I saw were worried about where season 3 is going because Grogu and Mando are separated, etc. The big reason why I'm not worried about that is because I believe at the core, The Mandalorian is a story of father and son. It's a different father and son. It's an adoptive father and son, but that is the relationship that drives this show. And I thought I actually thought of something just now that I thought was really interesting because I relate to this so much on a father level too. I don't know if you have kids, Steven, but do you have kids?
I do not. No.
Oh, okay. So you don't, but Josh and I definitely do. I thought it was interesting that you just said, you know, you don't see the emotion behind the mask. That kind of takes it to another level for me, doesn't it? Because it's sometimes I think dads put on a mask, don't they? I just thought about that.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because you want to hide the fear. You want to hide the fear of providing, the fear of the unknown, etc. And you want to kind of put on a mask and just put on a happy face for everyone. And so I think that's an interesting, I guess, depth to this father-son relationship that you just kind of made me think about.
Nice.
Some deep stuff. Star Wars is really getting into it these days.
This is what Star Wars has always been for me. Star Wars, there's lightsabers, there's space wizards and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, Star Wars is a story about family. That's what it all comes back to every time.
Yeah, and establishing this family is really cool. The way that they're doing it, of kind of like a found family. You know, you're figuring it out as you go along, but you still have these meaningful relationships.
And an adopted son is no less a son.
Yeah.
So to kind of take it back to the surface level blowing up stuff, I think one thing that I really liked, one episode that I really liked, I think episode 4 maybe is a little underappreciated. The one where they go in to the lab and they think they're just gonna blow up this with this outpost, and turns out that they discover the science, the nefarious stuff is going on. Then they escape down through the chasms there, and they're what is that thing? Some kind of armored speeder. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that episode was very exciting, and I love the little team that they sent through there. Fun to have Carl Weathers back for that episode as well. So yeah, that was mine. Up until the last episode, I think that was my favorite.
I love also a specific moment in there where you see Dr. Pershing's holo projector in that scene. Little nerdy appreciation for Omid Abtahi, who plays that character. He tweeted out that it was his child dream to be a Star Wars projected image, and here he was cool. As a projected image in an episode. So it's kind of a cool little moment that I appreciate more after seeing how nerdy the actor was about it.
Nice. Okay, Andy, thank you so much for coming on to this episode. This was a blast. I learned a lot, and I got way more excited about something that is going to entertain me for years to come. So this was a total win-win for me, at least. So thank you so much for your time here.
Oh, I loved it. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I've got a lot to say about Star Wars. And so feel free to anytime you guys want to talk Star Wars, you guys just hit me right up. I'll come on and chat with you.
Nice.
Hey, that'd be fun.
What is, I mean, I could easily look this up, but since you're here, what is the next Star Wars release that we're looking forward to?
I believe it's Book of Boba Fett. We actually had Jon Favreau. This was a very big question after the season 2 finale last week. But Jon Favreau was on Good Morning America today as we're recording this, and he confirmed that Book of Boba Fett is the next thing to come out. They're in pre-production for that, and then after that will be Mandalorian season 3. And so a little disappointing for people who are anxious to see what happens to Grogu, but for fans of Boba Fett, that's what's next. And it's going to be holiday period 2021. So we got a bit of a gap here, which kind of sucks. But after that, then I think we're going to be on a roll where we don't have much time in between all these shows because we have literally 11 projects to look forward to right now.
Wow.
So those are going to come out kind of season 3 Mandalorian and Boba Fett are going to come out same time, right? Because
no,
2021
pretty close together. So Kathleen Kennedy said that the next chapter in the Mandalorian saga is coming out Christmas 2021. She actually didn't say Mandalorian season 3. And so we all assumed that Mandalorian season 3 was coming out Christmas 2021, but it actually seems like it'll be slightly after that, probably into 2022.
Okay. So the next chapter then will be Book of Boba Fett is what
Book
we're
of
speculation. Okay.
No, that's
Nice.
confirmed. That's
confirmed.
Yeah, that was the post-credit scene of the season, was confirming that was going to be.
Yeah, and now as of today, they actually officially confirmed that that's a separate show. It is not season 3 of The Mandalorian. Okay. That's a different project, and that is going to be, they're producing both of them around the same time. And so we'll likely see season 3 of The Mandalorian shortly after the Book of Boba Fett. I would kind of anticipate it would even be within weeks of the Book of Boba Fett because it seems like they're working on both pretty much simultaneously. But we don't know exactly when that's going to be. So stay tuned for when the official release date for Mandalorian season 3 is. But we do know the Book of Boba Fett comes out first, and that will be Christmas, December 2023.
So sounds like I am learning 2021. Yeah. And it looks like I am going to have to keep a Disney Plus subscription. I can't just get it for when Mandalorian is coming out. I'm going to have to like actively keep it going because all these things.
Well,
are
that's
be
the idea.
Out.
That's the business model. You can't drop that subscription, right?
Plus, with the Marvel shows coming out early next year, yeah, I'm hooked.
Yeah, you've got Marvel shows. January is WandaVision. March, I believe, is the Winter Soldier series. And then I think a couple months later is the Loki series. And all 3 of those look dope. So, yeah, you're not going to be able to let go of it, man. Give Disney your money. Come on.
Hey, that's worth the $8 a month or whatever it is.
100%, man. Best $8 I've ever spent. I'll take my money. If you give me content like this, make it $20. Don't tell them that, but I would do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Andy. And if you want to see more Fantology, you can find us at www.fantologybooks.com on all your podcast providers. And you can support the show at patreon.com/Fantology_books. All right. We'll see everyone next time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Andy.